This video was brought to you by DecoNetwork. DecoNetwork software is designed for the apparel decoration industry to keep staff and equipment running smoothly. Learn more at DecoNetwork.com.
Hey everyone, it's Zach Dewhurst with the podcast Let's Get Printing. Today's guest is Coltin Handrahan of Stay Golden Custom. Hey Coltin, how you doing today?
Hey Zach, doing pretty great. Thanks for having me on today.
Coltin's experiencing a nice little blizzard, and he's the only one in the shop today. So kudos to him for not calling it a day off. But I'm real excited about having Coltin on the podcast. Coltin's business is turning 10 years old as of this month, and he's 27. So if you do the math, he started this thing at a young age, and it's just growing like crazy. Coltin, tell me a little bit about the business.
Yeah, Zach. So our company is called Stay Golden Custom. We're a print shop on the east coast of Canada in a place called Prince Edward Island, which is Canada's smallest province. We're an island on the east coast of about 160,000 people. But in the Atlantic region, there's about 2 million people. 2 million people. That's kind of our market area. We do screen print, embroidery, digital, kind of all of the above. And we started close to 10 years ago now as a small retail brand when I was in high school with some friends. I started doing custom jobs on the side in college. It's probably been 6 or 7 years now that we've taken it seriously. And it's been probably the last 4 years that, the business has really started to scale. Just finished our third year that we've managed to double our sales. So it's been a really exciting kind of ride, and it's a bit of a wake up call coming up to the 10-year anniversary in about a week or so.
Yep, I keep running into you young guys who are still in their mid to late 20s, and you approach 10 years of owning a business, and I feel like I'm behind. Wait till you turn 30. It's all downhill from there. All right.
Yeah.
Well, today's episode is all about the Impressions Show, formerly known as the ISS. Very different show this year. Last year didn't even exist because of the pandemic. And Coltin, you attended the 2020 show, didn't you?
I did, yeah, shortly before the start of COVID. That was my first time attending the show, and I got to say, it was really good to be back. It wasn't quite, I think, at its full scale and size this year, but it was really, really great to get back and to see so many folks from the industry.
For those of you who don't know, the Impressions Show at Long Beach really kicks off the year in the industry. It is by far the largest show of the year. I mean, you have people coming from all over the world to exhibit and attend and learn about where the industry is going. I bet Coltin would agree. You can get one heck of an education by attending one of the trade shows. I'm not saying you have to go to the Impressions Show necessarily in Long Beach to get a degree in the industry, but if you attend any industry trade show, you're going to be able to network, talk with exhibitors, and just kind of get a better footing of where you want to take your business and the different steps to accomplishing your goals. I know at this Impressions Show, it was a much smaller show than normal. I mean, I couldn't give you an exact percentage, but it felt like it was half the size of it typically was. A lot of vendors pulled out at the last moment. A lot of vendors who typically have very large booths had a very small one. But in a way, it was really nice because if you were walking around, you actually had a really good opportunity to network and speak with a lot of the exhibitors in more detail than you typically might not be able to. I mean, Coltin attended the show in 2020. I attended in 2019 was the last time before this one. And when I attended, it was shoulder to shoulder, and you kind of had to fight your way to get a chance to talk to some of the exhibitors. And I felt because of just less people, it was a great networking experience. What do you think, Coltin?
I would absolutely agree. For us, one of the things that's always been, such a game changer when it comes to these shows that made a difference for us was the opportunity to, network and meet other print shop owners and staff from across the states and the world. I'd probably agree that this year's show was I would say maybe about half the full size, but at the same time, that was still a really, really big show. It was unfortunate to see in kind of the weeks leading up to the show, a few of the, especially the larger vendors did pull out. But I think, to your point, it was because it was a bit smaller, there was kind of an interesting angle where you got more one-on-one time with exhibitors. Um, and in the week leading up to it, just the folks on the Shirt Show podcast had mentioned that because it was a bit smaller, those, in the industry that made the effort to be there, I think that kind of, that really showed how committed you were. And, that kind of, there was an interesting networking angle there. It was a bit smaller, it was a better opportunity to kind of, build some deeper connections across the country. And I would say that, like, you know, we look at the 2020 show, and there's, rock sponsoring massive rock shows, which is pretty awesome. We didn't necessarily see, there wasn't as, much in terms of like smoke and lights this year, but definitely a lot more better opportunities to kind of get, that deep one-on-one time, with some really interesting exhibitors and folks in the industry.
It was a safe show to attend, is what I felt, which is the first and foremost important thing. I didn't feel it was a super spreader event, but hopefully next year it is back to normal. We're not even having to wear masks, maybe, and it'll be even more fun. But it was definitely a West Coast crowd. I know I always like to see where people are from, and most people were from California, a neighboring state. Uh, Colton, you're on the very far east part of Canada. That is probably the farthest I saw someone travel to attend. I definitely saw exhibitors from outside of the country attend. Um, but I think because of the pandemic at the moment, the next show is in Atlantic City, so that's going to be on the other side of the country on the East Coast in March. And then at the end of the fall, is September. There's the Impression show is in Fort Worth, Dallas, and I really feel you're going to see that East Coast show be probably busier than it normally is. And I think the same for the Fort Worth show. We'll have more people from the middle of the country, and there's still nothing like Long Beach. Long Beach gets a lot of cool stuff, and I want to talk about some of those different new pieces of equipment and technology that we saw that you don't see it really any other show. Again, Long Beach is special. One thing though, I walked away kind of feeling a little proud of myself. I don't want to brag, but I really stressed before the show. I think it's going to be the DTF show.
Mm-hmm.
And it was. I mean, I don't know about you, Colton, but I felt I saw more DTF printers than screen printing, than DTG. Um,
It
I'm sorry,
was
I
the
think I
year of
said DTG.
DTF at
DTF,
at
I'm sorry.
Impressions. Yeah, absolutely. It was, I mean, really everywhere you went across the show floor. And it's a little bit hard to tell, looking back at it, is that perhaps because some of the bigger screen print manufacturers had pulled out of the show?
Yes.
But it's interesting thinking back to 2020. I remember Josh from Stalls was doing a talk at the In Kitchen Shop Talks stage back in 2020 about the future of transfers. And the crew from Stalls were getting questions about, what do transfers look like in the world? Like, how do we advance past the bottleneck of having to weed transfers constantly? And that was just this open-ended question, and there really wasn't a solution in 2020. It's been so interesting to see how far it's come in 2 years. I remember sometime, I think it was early last year, seeing a video of someone in Thailand who had retrofitted a Brother GTX to do DTF transfers. And we shared it around our shop and were just blown away. We had never seen something like this. And to see in such a quick period of time, to see this go mainstream. I think the technology is still early. Um, but we're really excited to see where that's going to go. I think direct to film transfer printing is something we're going to be hearing more and more about.
No, I completely agree with you about it being very new technology. It's going to keep evolving. I mean, look at DTG 10, 15 years ago. You'll buy your printer 6 months later, they have a new method. And I know with some of the suppliers, they really wanted you to buy the new printer and they would charge you a lot more for the ink and they'd be the only one who could supply you the ink for your printer. So they really could kind of push you to buying the newer printers at times. In this direct to film, I do agree. I think it is in the infancy stages, and it's going to be another year or two before you start seeing Brother, Epson, Roland come out with their own printers. They can support them a little bit better. So
I
I'm
agree.
one to, I mean, the beautiful thing about this technology though, Colton, is it's a transfer, meaning you're pressing it at the end. You can outsource transfers to other companies who have DTF equipment and just be the heat presser at that point. You don't need to print your own transfers. You can get things pretty quickly nowadays through expedited mail. And that's the nice thing with DTG. I have to have the physical shirt there with the machine. With DTF, I can outsource my transfers, get them delivered in a day or two, and then just heat press them. So I think for a lot of people, if you want to wait, the technology is still being developed, outsource it, in a year or two, you're going to get the best bang for your buck. But
Yeah.
I mean, everywhere, left and right, Colton, I saw DTF printers, and there was even the CobraFlex printer, which didn't even use powder. And if that isn't a perfect illustration of, hey, we have to powder the transfer. Well, now we can print adhesive and not powder it. Well, what's next? So I know that like foil DTF, metallic DTF, fluorescent colors, it's all possible. But is it there yet? I don't know. You might
Hmm.
want to outsource your transfers for the time being, but it is the future without a doubt. And I couldn't believe how cheap some of the printers were. It's not that expensive to get into the game. And I think you're going to see eventually, Colton. I mean, you were a high schooler when you started your business. What's beautiful about the industry is you have very low barriers of entry, and you've got a lot of contract decorators who will essentially help you get in the game until you can justify buying your own equipment. And with DTF, I mean, anybody can buy a heat press for $1,000 or $2,000 and be able to claim to be a custom decoration shop by just outsourcing DTF transfers. It's
Which is a
incredible.
bit of a double-edged sword for
It is a
the
double-edged
rest of
sword.
us shops. But
Everybody's going to get
that
bought
is one of the great things about this industry.
I call it the best and worst thing is that
Yeah,
anybody can get into it. Um,
yeah.
but
But
I think got even easier now.
exactly. To your point, Zach, about kind of where the DTF technology is, and you and Brandon had discussed this a couple of weeks ago in the podcast and made some really good points. I agree. My take on it after the show is, we're going to start working DTF and direct to film transfers into our process, but I think it's a bit early to bring it completely in-house. I think there's probably really good $200,000 DTF printers, but I don't know if I'm convinced yet that those entry level 20, 30K DTF printers are quite there yet in terms of quality. But that being said, like there has been a lot of chatter in the industry about those that have Brother GTX and certain DTG machines retrofitting them. And it's something I was quite cautious about the idea initially, but like we do have some friends with shops that run those as well, and they've actually started running sample tests and that sort of thing, and they're seeing pretty good results. So I think that's something that we're gonna maybe dip our toe into later in 2022.
That is one of the cool things about DTF is you can use a DTG machine and just reverse the way you print the ink. I mean, with the transfer, you have to do CMYK and then drop the white. And I know with some of those brother printers, they even have the drivers to reverse that and even apply the choke. And it's just amazing. Um, it's the speed of which that it's kind of taking over a lot of the digital printing. Because like you said, 2 years ago, it wasn't there. And then at this show, it's more popular than DTG printers. I totally agree that some of the vendors that pulled out were more so screen printers, like M&R wasn't there. M&R is typically the biggest booth. It's the first thing you see when you walk in. M&R makes beautiful equipment.
Yeah, the M&R
But
booth is typically the size of a small city at
oh my
Impressions
God.
in Long Beach.
And just, yeah, with DTF, it is amazing. I can't wait for next year's show to see, if Brother, Epson, Roland, one of the brands that we are more comfortable with, and it comes with a nice little warranty. I do know one of the big things with DTF, just like DTG, any digital printing process where you have a water-based ink, you have to mind the humidity. If
Mhm.
you don't have good humidity at all times, and just, I mean, it could be over a weekend and the humidity gets too low, and before you know it, you have water-based inks clogging up print heads, and you're replacing print heads and you're down. That's always been my biggest problem with digital printing, is you better mind your humidity and other elements, and you can't be digitally printing right next to your screen printer that sucks up all the humidity in the room this time of the winter. Um,
Exactly.
but
And that's
speak,
something like
yep,
up here in Canada, we really faced with DTG when we set it up, which would have been maybe 3 years ago now. And really for listeners all across the states and different areas in the world, you really have to get used to and kind of in tune with your local conditions when it comes to humidity in the air. Out on the East Coast here in Canada, it's quite humid for parts of the year, but it really, really dries out in the winter. So before we were even running a conveyor dryer for curing our DTG ink, if we're trying to cure on a heat press, that's something we realized that we're getting really different results when things were dry in the winter versus more humid times of the year. So there's a lot of variables, and it really depends where you're at and kind of how you're going to compensate for that, whether it's humidifiers or, kind of, sealing up the shop a little bit more.
yeah, a lot of the sales reps that are selling DTG and other pieces of equipment, they don't always work in a shop and they don't deal with the conditions. And I think they often will understate the importance of humidity. You cannot beat Mother Nature. Highly, highly suggest getting a humidifier for the winter, sometimes a dehumidifier, because I always saw with DTG, when I'm printing 40 to 50% humidity, the printer sings. Under 40%, it's fighting to get the ink sometimes through the head.
Exactly.
Speaking of digital printing equipment, there was a couple other types of digital printing methods that you don't see at other shows. And the first one I want to talk about is um, digital squeegee. And it's kind of backwards the way it is. But a digital squeegee method is when you screen print a white underbase for a design, and then the CMYK print heads are on another platen, and it prints the design over the white underbase. And it's a combination. Instead of printing multiple screens, you're really just burning one screen, printing the underbase, and then practically having a DTG printer hover over it and print the design. Um, at the show, I saw some rock equipment that is at the Ryonet booth, and I never see it at any other show. But gosh, Colton, it is an impressive method of printing. I don't know if I can justify spending over 300 grand on the thing, but it is really, really cool.
Yeah, and that's one of the things about the show in Long Beach. There's a lot of shows across the states. We have them here in Canada, but and after attending a few and then getting the chance to attend Long Beach in 2020, it was really an eye opener that like you said, Zach, you don't see a lot of this, equipment that's at that level at most shows. For our shop, like we're a shop of 6 to 7 people up in Canada. We're probably not getting a digital squeegee anytime soon, but to see kind of how that works up close is really, really fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, knowledge is power. The more you know of what's possible and where the industry's going, the better. It's just, I know there was a lot of California people I talked to that are kind of just getting into the industry, and it was so convenient to attend that they did. And what you have to think when you see some of these things. I know next to the DecoNetwork booth was this automatic bagging machine, and it was cool. I mean, I'll admit, it folded the shirt, then it threw it in a bag, and it'll do other things. It'll tag it. I mean, but I can tell you that 99% of the people who stopped and looked at the thing uh, will never buy one. And they were too busy looking at the machine. And right behind them is us at the DecoNetwork booth. And we don't have an attractive piece of equipment that's doing something elaborate. I kind of joked with the guys and I was like, we need to put a crate in the middle of the booth, put some caution tape over it, and have it like shake and make some noise, because it's amazing. The sexy equipment gets all the attention, and technology and some of the other cool stuff that will really help your business gets overlooked. And
It
Colton, I
does.
hope that you actually stopped at every single booth, and I mean, sometimes it's 5 seconds and just saying, no, I'm not going to be cutting vinyl anymore. I don't need to be doing that. But I saw you at the DecoNetwork booth, and what other booths did you see that you might have missed if you were too distracted with some equipment?
Oh, like listen, when I'm at Long Beach, I'm literally a kid in a candy shop, doing this stuff every day. And for full disclosure, I work more so on the sales side of the company nowadays. I'm not so much on the production floor as much as I used to be. Um, but it's just absolutely fascinating to see, such a wide range of vendors and services, really in all parts of, how you would put together, a custom print company. One that sticks out that was really interesting is, the Firebird pre-treat booth. They're now selling entire, basically, washing machines that pre-treat
Yep.
all over a garment. And they have a whole kind of spin-off of the business called Cheater Tees, in which you can buy a Bella Canvas 3001 that's already been pre-treated all the way over. And, most listeners that are into DTG will know that I would say 99% of DTG problems are pre-treat problems.
Absolutely.
So that was really interesting. We use Firebird pre-treat here, and it's made our lives significantly easier. So shout out to them. But to your point earlier about, it is the big pieces of equipment get a lot of attention, but it's services like DecoNetwork. Maybe they're the unsung heroes of the convention in some ways, because it's like you can stack a shop with three autos, but if you don't have the systems and the tech in place, to actually get orders through your sales funnel, and then produced right to make sure that there's one shared version of truth across the entire company on every device, then the equipment doesn't really matter if you have those bottlenecks. It's one of those things that you're only as fast as the slowest bottleneck within your company. So it's really, I don't know, it's we go for a lot of reasons. It's the networking component, it's the opportunity to meet new suppliers. And then it's, even just from our conversations at the DecoNetwork booth, we were able to learn some new things, and, we're looking at doing some site improvements now that we're just kind of in one of the quieter times of our year. But it is, like, to your point, it's something where I think if it really makes the most sense if you've made the trip there to give every booth kind of a chance and make sure you kind of cover the whole show floor.
Yeah, and it was a lot more manageable this year than in years past. I mean, I'll tell you, it took 3 full days to go to every single booth at one of those older shows in Long Beach. Um, it, it, but and we're going to talk a little bit more here in a little bit about the education seminars, and that's what we're going to start doing more with DecoNetwork. Is we're going to start hosting shop talks and seminars to get the word out, because uh, it's amazing. Software drives almost everything in that room, and every shop owner needs to be efficient. And how can you be more efficient? By using software. And yeah, if you haven't already signed up for DecoNetwork, request a tour, and you will not be disappointed. And you'll see how much you can grow your business by having the right technology tools, as much as the equipment that you're seeing at the shows. It's just as vital, if not even more vital.
Exactly. One of the things we look at, and kind of the lens that we view any new purchase or kind of systems implementation in our company with at this point, because we've been growing pretty quick, is it scalable and is it sustainable? And if it doesn't check those boxes, then whether it's a piece of equipment or, you're looking at an expansion, it doesn't necessarily make sense. But DecoNetwork for us, It's kind of the core of our tech ecosystem. We say we're a tech company that sells t-shirts, a little bit of A, a little bit of B. But I couldn't imagine, whether it's the sales team or, our production team, I couldn't imagine us doing the volume we do now on the average day or week if we didn't have DecoNetwork in place. And it's been probably 3 years now. It's just become, a part of our day to day. But if we were to lose that, I don't even know how if the lights would come on here, because it's such an important part of how we just kind of ensure that all our orders are produced correctly on time, and that we're kind of delivering on our promise to our clients.
Another piece of cool technology I saw at the show, it was kind of a combination of technology and sexy equipment, and that was the hybrid transfer printer by Eno. Eno is a brand from Switzerland, and they're kind of the transfer printing equipment gurus. And it was another 300,000 plus printer, but what this does, it's kind of the reverse of the digital squeegee. The digital squeegee, again, is screen printing the white underbase and then printing the CMYK. A hybrid transfer is first printing the CMYK onto PET film. So that's what the DTF is always printed on PET film, so the same type of stuff. And it's printing the CMYK, and then the printer prints the white underbase. And you're probably asking yourself, well, why would you use that over direct-to film? Well, direct-to film is still more of a low run solution. You don't want to be printing 500 DTF transfers. That's not the case. I always say, Colton, that each decoration process has its own time and place, and they're way more complementary than substitute.
Yep, all tools in the toolbox.
Yeah, yep, exactly. And I don't think even, DTG, I'm not saying it's dead because of DTF, but DTF is going to take a chunk out of it because they're way more substitute than complementary. But transfers are always going to be a complementary option because it allows me to print something on demand. And direct to film is, again, more of a low run. A hybrid screen print transfer in which it's first CMYK and then a white underbase is more of, again, higher run, low amount, or unlimited colors. The hybrid method is what I always hear in the industry, and I'm not going to say that this is what they do, but I'm always being asked, how do I add supercolor transfer as an option to my website? Because a lot of my clients that I help consult with, they'll outsource supercolor transfers. And supercolor, which really became popular around 4 or 5 years ago when hybrid just came out, that's what they're really doing. I know here locally we have a transfer company called Art Brands, and they launched chroma transfers and true color transfers. Well, one of them is DTF, one of them is the hybrid method. And I can always tell you one because I've felt them, I've applied them, but it's the pricing itself. A supercolor transfer versus a DTF, there's going to be more price breaks. DTF is going to be more size based. But again, the hybrid method, really cool stuff. And just know it's important to realize that, yeah, DTF, low run, there is an option for a higher run. You can be much cheaper. PET film, though, is the main cost. I mean, the ink is much less expensive than the carrier itself. And the worst thing about PET is you're not really going to use it many times. I mean, it's not the most environmentally friendly decoration method. I do know that some of the transfer suppliers will allow you to send it back to them and then they can recycle it for you. But Colton, did you have a chance to check out that Eno hybrid machine?
I didn't get the chance to stop by their booth. That's one I missed, but it is really interesting. We've heard quite a bit about Supercolors and everything that they've done, and there's other brands. Stella's Transfer Express is kind of bringing out a product as well. I think it's one of those things that these are all tools in the toolbox. And I think it's kind of before investing in, bringing this stuff in-house, you kind of have to take a good hard look at what type of clients that your shop's working with and, what size of jobs. I remember, 3 years ago before we got into DTG, we kind of we bought into the hype, and we thought it was going to replace quite a bit more in our business than perhaps it ended up doing. It's still really really good to have as a part of our business. It's brought value. We've paid off the machine and everything. I think DTF is fascinating, and the PET transfers, because they can be applied to so many different types of garments. The
Yes.
challenge with DTG is, as soon as you get into, those poly cotton blends, it gets a lot more challenging.
Yep.
They say there's an Epson, poly pre-treat. I've seen some samples, and at least the samples I saw last year, I don't think the quality is quite there yet.
Yep.
But I think DTF, and I think it's maybe a hybrid model for a lot of shops. Perhaps there's potential to retrofit a DTG machine in-house for some small run stuff, or maybe it's one of the Cobra Flexes or something like that. But then have a production partner somewhere within a reasonable shipping time of your shop that can handle those larger volume orders when it comes to producing transfers. Keeping
Well,
in mind that there's going to be a point when it probably makes sense just to transition that job into screen printing, unless it's the customer that needs 98 colors in their design.
Well, I mean, you've made a great point there, and again, the big reason why, and I still do DTG, but the reason I see a lot of DTF taking over, or DTF taking over DTG, is the fact that it can be applied to virtually any type of product. The reason it can be applied to virtually any product is because the PET film will release the ink at a much lower temperature, and all of those transfers have been powdered with adhesive to give them extra stretch and durability. Because I've printed a lot of screen print transfers. I still print a lot of screen print transfers at our shop. When it comes to paper, I've bought dozens of screen print transfer paper. Only one I have ever come across actually will release ink below 300 degrees. And if you're printing on a polyester, 300 is not low enough. You will
No.
not scorch a tri-blend at 300 degrees, but you're still going to be leaving a mark on the press or from the heat onto a poly product.
Yeah,
And
we try to apply at 280 when we can,
yep,
because you get north of 300 and you're just in the danger zone depending on the garment.
absolutely. That's great advice, Colton. And the nice thing about the PET film is the fact that, I mean, it will release at 250 a lot of the times. I'm not saying that's what you want to hit, trust that it's cured onto the garment, but if you can, the PET film will release much better than any type of paper. And that's what's really been the big part of the technology of why this is all possible, is because we're not printing onto paper anymore. We're printing onto PET film. And you mentioned even like a lot of the sales reps will say, hey, this printer or this pre-treat will allow you to print onto polyesters. Well, two things there. One, water-based ink, moisture wicking material, it's not meant to be. Don't force
Mm.
it. Secondly, you're often asking to cure pre-treat and so forth at a much higher temperature than is optimal for that type of material. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of any type of pre-treating onto synthetic materials, but the PET film will only continue to get better. There are cold peels, there are hot peels. All of the DTF that I've seen so far is pretty much a cold peel. I like hot peeling. It's quicker. The bottleneck in PET film printing is you got to press it, and then you got to let it cool, and then you peel it, and then anything I ever apply under 300 degrees, Colton, I always press again with parchment or craft paper. That's going to give me that extra peace of mind.
Yeah, that's
Especially
your
if I'm
insurance
cold.
policy.
Yeah, if you're
It's
applying a
it, it's a lot
375,
of
you don't have to
it's
do
a
it.
lot cheaper to pay for the labor for that second press than replace garments.
Yeah, I think before you know it, though, you're going to start seeing new heat presses in which you kind of have an inline, so you have a cooling step so that it can come back and forth, or at least you're going to start seeing more dual presses being bought because of that exact reason. The problem is, after you press a transfer, you can't leave it even on just a platen without the heat hovering over it, because the platen's still warm. You really got to
Yeah.
get it off the machine. So I think you might actually start seeing platens underneath have the ability to do like a quick cool down, allow you to peel it, bring it right back to the press. I
Yeah,
don't know. It's,
if the stalls crew are listening now, we're just feeding you great ideas.
well,
I'd have to wonder if, maybe there's that dual head press that Stalls has, that one's pretty cool. If there'd ever be, kind of a functionality you could build in there.
well, you know what they released was one. It used to not be able. You couldn't buy a heated underplaten, and then Stalls came out with that. Well, why can't we cool it? Same kind of
Hmm.
concept, ish. And the reason why they came out with that heating is because it allowed you to prevent scorching as much. Well, with all this PET film, I just go at a lower temperature and I'm not scorching the garment. It's a better solution than having
Yeah.
heat underneath.
And,
Um,
and that's something that, I think in North America, we're actually playing a bit of catch up because if you look overseas, they've been doing this for quite a while. If you ever
Absolutely.
get a pair of Nike shorts, a pair of Nike dry fit shorts, you look at that check mark, if it's been heat transferred on, I always wondered, how you'd tell it's a transfer, but there's no scorching whatsoever, and they're using water-based transfers or they're using PET. So in a way, we're actually playing a bit of catch up here. But I think a lot of shop owners would agree that as an industry, we're getting a lot of pressure, you know, to kind of push into that smaller run model, whether it's print on demand or batch production. And it's challenging and it's hard to find that compatible with screen printing. So when customers are looking for those smaller runs that are high detail, or you're having to do individual product fulfillment on, a web store, I think DTF could be one of the answers to that.
Well, and you can also see a lot of neck labels have been they're either a hybrid or they're a DTF transfer now because of the detail it can hold and the
Oh,
durability. But
detail's
you have
beautiful for neck
oh,
labels. We do a lot of private labeling here, and that's actually, that was our first foray into DTF, because plastisol ink transfers, we were just finding we couldn't get the necessary small detail in that text. But it's, we've seen some samples of DTF neck labels, and we really like what we've seen so far.
yep, because when you use a plastisol ink, you have to have so many millimeters of ink if you're going to want it to actually stay on the garment. And when it's pressed, that ink then expands. And with DTF, they don't need as much ink, and they use a finer powder, holds amazing detail. And you're absolutely right about Europe and Asia. I mean, China, I think, has been DTFing for several years. I had a relative buy me a Joe Burrow jersey right when he got drafted by the Bengals, and they went through Alibaba. And when I received the jersey, it still had a film on one of the logos. And this is
Uh-oh.
a couple years ago, and I'm like, wait, what is this technology? And now I'm like, oh, they're DTFing these little parts of the jersey at times.
Yeah,
So
exactly. And doing it without
they've
scorching, doing it on demand, you can customize individual pieces, but without all that headache of weeding and, I,
well,
I I don't need to go on. I'm sure everyone listening to this is, pretty sick of weeding.
yeah, well, and I'll tell you what's really cool. I've seen video of they'll have a stack of like four different transfers that are all on PET film, so they're one of these types. And then they'll actually have a shirt come onto the machine, and it'll place all of the different locations, and then go in and be heat pressed. Like it's amazing. But Colton, there was other things that at the show than DTF, and that was seminars. There was also they have the talk shop where you have industry experts having kind of open conversations. Did you get to attend any seminars at the show?
We did. Yeah. My first time in 2020, I went down, I registered for the full conference. And this show, I was able to bring my production manager down with me. And for Porter, our production manager, I think it was a real eye opener, a really great educational experience. And, when there's the opportunity to bring staff down to these shows, I think it's such a great investment because it's an opportunity for them to see, what the industry looks like outside the four walls of your shop. Lots of really interesting seminars this year. Some were canceled in the kind of the weeks leading up to the show, which was unfortunate. But I think something that's really underrated is Ink Kitchen does put on their free shop talks. Rick Roth hosts it. He's a really, really interesting guy that's been in the industry for a long time. And I've always found those, both my shows, some of the most valuable, experiences, up close and, getting to do Q&As with guys like Dov Charney, the former founder of American Apparel, who is, an interesting, person with quite a bit of history, but, is, one of the pioneers of the industry. We probably wouldn't have the Bella Canvas 3001 if it wasn't for what American Apparel did 15 years ago.
Yep.
So, it's so seldom that you get in the same room and get the opportunity to ask questions of people like this. The guys from the Shirt Show podcast, Andy and Dylan, had a great shop talk. And the list goes on.
Those seminars, very educational, but I bet your production manager came back to Canada with some energy and he probably some excitement about where you're taking things. Is that a good statement to say?
Oh, absolutely. I think Porter's going to be listening to this. He'll agree. We're getting pelted with a blizzard today, but he was so excited. We could barely keep him out of the shop. No, jokes aside, yeah, absolutely. It's kind of when you're working in the business for such a long time, and working within a relatively small team like us, like we're 6-7 people, you can. I think the industry's came a long way in that there's a lot of really great online content and communities being built, but it's not really a replacement for that human to human interaction and kind of getting the energy of meeting all these people that do what you do. And you have so many things in common to talk about. You've almost dealt with the exact same customers in some ways and, faced a lot of the same problems. My first show in 2020, it was Saturday night during the show at the plaza at the convention. I ran into two guys while I was having a beer, and Boaz and Edison have a shop out in Vancouver called Coastal Rain. They become some of our best buds, and kind of how we're able to kind of share advice back and forth has really helped our shop. And that's probably one of the best things that we've taken out of this whole experience. It's the chance to meet and network and just networking is a dry term, but just meet buds in the industry and kind of get the chance to learn from them as well.
I mean, the biggest thing you can do is help each other avoid mistakes. We've all made mistakes, and it's if you can avoid. I mean, the Super Bowl is up next weekend. My Bengals are playing. I'm so pumped, and I'm pretty sure the game is going to come down to who makes the fewer mistakes. Sometimes it's not hitting the home run. It's about avoiding something. And something you brought up there too, you say you have a smaller team, 6 to 7. One thing I think often is misleading to some is bigger does not mean more better or even more profitable, Colton. I see some of these shops and I don't know about you, but I just don't know how I want to manage 50 people and 50 personalities. I kind of like having a nice family that we can all manage and never worry about, oh, what? We got a pandemic. What are we going to do?
Absolutely. You hear a lot of these guys.
Yeah, go ahead.
You hear a lot of guys, and people that have scaled up, they're running like 5-6 autos, in a warehouse. And you ask them, when were they happiest? They're like, oh no, like when it was 10 of us and we ran 1 or 2 autos.
Yes.
I think there kind of is this sweet spot. And for us, like we're growing pretty quick. I say 6, 7. We're probably closer to 9 in our high season. And we have a lot of growing to do this year with, we're looking at hoping to buy a second building and grow the team and bring in, our first auto, which is going to be pretty exciting. But for us, like, I don't think we want to be, the VC funded rocket ship, custom ink, running a bunch of auto, like, It's running a bunch of autos, team size of 50, 60 people. It gets really difficult to manage culture, when you're a team that big. We're in this because, we want to get the chance to work with really cool clients and, do jobs that, in niches that we like to work with. We got a tight knit team that, we love hanging out with, and it's just a cool place to be. But if we were like 35 people, I don't know how that dynamic's going to change. But, it's one of those things, I guess, for every shop, the answer is a little bit different where that sweet spot is. But I definitely agree that, bigger isn't always necessarily better.
Well, and that's where you can, again, at these trade shows, that's the networking opportunity. There's a lot of contract decorators who do have those 4 autos and 50 people shops that you can establish a relationship at one of the shows or start building it before the show and meet one another face to face and just outsource that work. There's nothing wrong with outsourcing work as long as you trust the individual, because you're putting your name on the line. And Colton, once you have an auto, before you know it, you might start fulfilling some more contract work from other decorators in the industry.
Yeah, and to your point earlier when you said, it's about trying to learn from others' mistakes so you don't make them yourself. I spent the first 4 or 5 years just making stupid mistakes and banging my head off a wall until I started actually taking advice from people I should have. And one of those pieces of advice was not to be scared of outsourcing, when you're in the earlier stages and growing your company. That came from, a guy that I know who has a really, really impressive operation in Toronto and the States now. And it was something that took a long time to sink in. But it's one of those things, the relationships you build at these shows and, even just online by, maybe it's just shooting an Instagram DM, and building a relationship. It goes a long way, for sure.
All right, Colton. Well, I think we've got a long enough episode here. I hope you stay warm. It is just nasty out this weekend. I was going to say United States, but I guess the whole North America has kind of gone through a blizzard, and that doesn't stop us from being excited about the industry. And are you going to be attending the Atlantic City show in a couple months, or you probably got everything you needed out of that Impression show?
Yeah, I think it definitely scratched the itch. Being based up here in Canada, to make that trip down, there's a lot of added, a little bit of red tape right now, just going over the border and COVID tests each way. So I think we're probably going to hunker down here for the winter at least, and we're kind of coming up to a pretty big growth period for the company. So we're kind of we did our, we had our little work vacation. So I think that's probably going to do it for us now. But certainly when restrictions are lifted a little bit later in the year, we hope to get back down to the States. New Jersey sounds really interesting. I've heard really great things with the show in Atlantic City as well. But at the very least, we're really looking forward to a bigger and an improved Long Beach in 2023.
But the fact that you actually attended the Long Beach show does say a lot about why that show is so special. You had a show coming up that's a lot closer to where you are, and you go to Long Beach because of what you see. And you're exactly right, Colton. We're going to leave it with this, and that is in 2023 and beyond, I highly suggest attending the Long Beach show. It is unlike any other show in the industry, and you'll get one heck of an education by just networking with others in the industry, checking out all the exhibitors' booths, and attending the seminars and shop talks where you can take you and your team's education level and strategy to the next level. Thank you so much, Colton, for your time. Stay safe, and everyone, join us for our next episode. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for having me on, Zach. Cheers.